would like to call roll for all of those Promise Zone Authority board members that are present in the meeting. If you would identify yourself and the place that you are logging into the meeting from this morning, that would be greatly appreciated. Jason Kennedy, City of Ludington, Michigan.
Jim McLean, Cornelius, North Carolina.
Kathy Surd, Pere Marquette, Michigan.
Andrea Large, Ludington, Michigan.
Lynette Quillen from Ludington, Michigan.
Are there any other Promise Zone Authority board members on the call this morning? Hearing none, we'll move to the public comment section of the agenda. This is the opportunity where we provide opportunity for the public to provide comment to the authority board. If there's anyone that wishes to address the board, would ask that you unmute yourself, identify yourself, and address the board at this time. Second call for public comments. If you wish to address the board, please unmute your mic and address the board. And final call for public comments. Hearing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the Student Success Committee meeting this morning.
Jody and Jason, I have a quick question. We have it listed as a joint board meeting along with the student success. Is that because we have 6 committee members on this, 6 board members on this committee?
I would say that was because Jody made an oversight. So make that connection. It should.
Well, but we do have 6 board members on the committee, right?
Yes, we do have. What's that?
So if everybody, if all board members are in attendance as committee members, we actually have a quorum, right?
Yes, but this was not intended to be the joint meeting. It was just.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
just wondering if that's a problem we need to address another time.
I think it's just.
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up at a board meeting. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think the way that the Promise Zone has designed their committees, it's quorum or not, they're going to be public open meetings, and then the committees make recommendations to the board. So whether or not we had a quorum, we wouldn't necessarily be making any decisions here.
Yeah, I understand that. It just a little cumbersome. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I would move for approval of the agenda.
Thanks, Jim. Motion from Jim. Is there a second?
Second by Kathy.
Motion by Jim, second by Kathy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. We'll now need a motion to approve the minutes.
And I am pulling those up right now. Forgive my untimeliness there. So this is from November 2020, when we had the joint meeting with board members to start the discussion of how to align, if the board so desires, or the Student Success Committee so desires, the Promise Zone and the LCAN. And I'm not sure.
A motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion. Andrea?
Motion from Andrea. Is there support?
Support, Kathy.
Motion from Andrea, support by Kathy. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the November 9th meeting signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll move into the business of the committee. First being a welcome to some new staff members. West Shore Community Staff, Dr. Tammy Wolverton, the Director of Advising and Retention. Not certain if Tammy
Tammy's
is on
here.
the call, but welcome, Tammy.
I am here. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Callie War, the MCAN completion coach for Promise and the Manistee Commitment Scholars Program. Welcome to both of you in joining our meeting this morning. Would like to turn it over to Jody for a quick update on the Promise Scholar update and our numbers.
Thanks. So also welcome everybody. So far, and actually it increased over the weekend, but we had, as of last week, 117 applicants for class of 2021, which is still down, but it was down by, I think, maybe it was 18% compared to about 30% last month about this time. So that's exciting to me. Thank you to counselors out there who are really working hard to getting your students and they're getting all their ducks in a row so that they can get enrolled, because across the state of Michigan, enrollment is down, and that is not a pattern that is just related to Michigan only. College enrollment is down across the country. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can in Mason County to encourage college application, encourage post-secondary goals. And one of the things that we're doing through the LCAN is we've created a Fafsa completion initiative at the local public high schools across the county. So you should be hearing about that on the radio if you haven't already. And I'm really excited. All of the counselors have prizes. This effort was supported by the Pennies from Heaven Foundation. And I hope that we're able to continue it even when there isn't a pandemic. I'm going to scroll down just so we can see a few other numbers here. We did have 3 scholars graduate in fall 2020, so that puts our total for the Promise Zone up to 13. Obviously, this year, I think it's going to be the year where those numbers really start to show. It takes most students about 3 years to finish a degree at community college, and really this is the 3rd year for Promise scholars at West Shore. So I expect we'll be seeing more and more as we age into a more mature Promise Zone.
Jody, a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. Do you happen to have the graduate breakdown by cohorts?
I do. Yes, I do have it. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I do have it.
Okay. I'll get it later. Thanks.
So the 3 who just graduated were all from the 2018 cohort. I was waiting on, I think Jim, I had sent you those numbers, but I was waiting on some information about one that I wasn't sure for summer 2020, but we did not have a graduating summer. So just quick update, 153 Promise scholars attended West Shore in fall 2020. 2018, that cohort started as 86. Right now, there were 23 total in fall 2020 attending West Shore, and 13 of those used the Promise. For the 2019 class update for fall 2020, that cohort, I'm sorry, it started as 83. I think I said 86 before, but that was the number who applied. So let me just, 2018 cohort 54 started and 22 are currently still pursuing their degree at West Shore. 2019 cohort 83 started and 53 of those students are still pursuing their degree at West Shore. And we know that some students transfer. That's a pretty natural process in the community college world. And some students choose to pursue other programs that might not be offered through traditional college settings. And some students go to work. I also know that the pandemic changed the landscape for a lot of students, and because they didn't enjoy online learning or didn't feel like that was the best way that they could be successful, many students did choose to kind of opt out for a semester, even to avoid that experience. So the numbers you're seeing now and the numbers you're going to continue to see, I think through this winter, are really not representative of the landscape of what our Promise Zone is going to be able to accomplish. And I don't know what to tell you that will be, but I think that our numbers are going to keep getting better. Finally, 2020 cohort, so that's the one who just started this fall. There were 185 approved, and 78 of those 185 students decided to attend at West Shore. And most of those students are still there. I'll have those numbers for you soon. But I think it's interesting to note that more of those scholars, I think 2018 and class of 2020, about the same percentage of scholars use the promise, and it's more than 50%. I think it was like 62 or something like that. So it's good. The promise is helping students to attend and stay, and I'm hoping meet their goals, and I think it is. So that's just a quick share from me. Sorry if it wasn't so eloquent. I think Monday morning kind of tricks me up a little, but if anybody has questions, I did also want to share that West Shore has agreed to work with institutional research to get us retention reports straight from the college. So Jody's not sorting them through and maybe corrupting the numbers. And I don't think I did, but just in case, West Shore is going to give us those numbers directly. And I think we provided the retention report last year in the fall. So that's my intent again. If we can get it sooner, great. If we can't, you'll see it this fall.
Great, thank you. Next, Annie Jacobson, looking for a first-year seminar update from West Shore Community College.
Hi, I'm going to try to share my screen. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I hope that all can see. And I am, look here. Okay, so what I have been able to do with the help of our institutional research team at the college is put together some data based on the students across Mason County who enrolled in first year seminar at this time last year. So you'll see over here in this top table, this is all students, the 4 different sections. One was at MCE, 2 were at MCC, and 1 was at Leadington High School. Right here we have the numbers of students who were in each section for a total of 70 high school seniors across the county. And then this is the GPA, the overall GPA of the students while they were in first year seminar. And we know that this was incredibly impacted by COVID-19. And I'll have a little bit more on that later, but we had a number of students, particularly in MCE, who had problems accessing the internet, and we could not get in touch with them in order to help them withdraw. We can't do that on their behalf. We need their consent in order to do that. So I would say particularly with this top line here with the GPA for the Mason County Eastern students at accessibility really impacted that group. And then in this column here, we see the number of students in each section who enrolled in West Shore Community College for the fall semester. So all of the students who enrolled, we had a total of 40 out of the 70 for about 57%. And then over here, we have the average GPA of each class for the fall semester. And then the percentage of students who enrolled into the winter semester who are currently still taking classes with us. So it looks like we lost about 6 students, but we still have about half of them enrolled for the winter semester. Now the second table down here is the one that I tend to look at just a little bit more, which is why I included it, because up here we have all of the students who enrolled in first year seminar in the top table, but down here we have all of the students who completed. So we had a number of students, about 11 students, who withdrew from the course and did not complete the course. And they're included in this data up here. So if we look at all of the students who completed the course, we had 59. And I would imagine that those 11 withdrew due to COVID-19. The overall GPA stayed the same because those withdrawals don't impact GPA. But the number of students who enrolled in fall, we see that we actually had about 64% of the students who completed first year seminar enroll in West Shore for the fall. The overall GPA is a little bit higher. And then we also have a higher percentage of students who we retained into the winter 2021 semester. And then I also was able to work with Jill Sweet, our registrar, to see how many of the students enrolled in first year seminar at this time last year attended other colleges across the state. And so we had about 6 more. So out of the students who enrolled, and this is out of the 70 who were enrolled in the class from the beginning, we had about 2/3 of them continue on to college, either at West Shore or at another school. And so I wanted to highlight a couple things that went really, really well with the students last year. So the first one was how to utilize college tools, right? How to utilize mywestshore.edu, which is a student portal for how they can check their financial aid, order transcripts, register for classes, making sure they know how to use and access their West Shore email. We know that a lot of students don't get a lot of communication because they're not checking their West Shore email. So that's highlighted as part of the class. And then how to utilize Canvas, which of course we know our Ludington students use on a daily basis, but our other students in MCC and MCE do not. So familiarizing themselves with that system was a really important part of the class. Study skills, note-taking, helping students get prepared for college level reading and writing, of course, without actually turning it into a reading and writing class. A couple of our instructors were able to bring their students to class before we shut down for COVID-19. A couple sections, again, were able to do some one-on-one advising and then guidance through that registration process. What we have done, because each high school kind of emphasizes different components as part of their curriculum and other classes, some of the classes focus quite a bit on career exploration, and some of them didn't, because we know that they had a pretty robust career exploration focus already within their high school. So one of the nice things about this curriculum is that we could pretty much stick with what we normally do for our students who are on campus with us. But again, based on what each individual high school is doing, we can make adjustments to meet the needs of those students. I also wanted to highlight the potential impact of COVID-19 because I think that this played quite a large role for almost all of our students. So all first-year seminar courses went fully online March 16th. Internet access and connectivity problems for many students impacted their ability to complete the course. And then we also know that a number of our students had other non-academic responsibilities, such as caring for younger siblings who all of a sudden were not in school as well. And so we know that impacted the ability for them to focus as much on their academic pursuits as they normally would. West Shore was closed to the public as of March 23rd, so we were not able to bring all groups of students to campus, which is always a highlight of the semester, or was in the previous year, and for those students who were able to come last year. And then many students we were unable to get in touch with, either by phone or by email. I know that I was in touch with Laura and Michael at Ludington High School, really trying to get in touch with as many students as possible if I couldn't contact them on my own, and they were incredibly helpful. But we see that at Mason County Eastern, 7 out of the 15 students failed or withdrew from the course. At MCC, only 5 of the 37 students failed or withdrew. And at Ludington High School, 6 of the 18 students failed or withdrew. Most of those are withdrawals, but there are a couple of fails in there as well. And that's just because, again, we cannot withdraw on the student's behalf. We actually need their consent to update their educational record. So obviously we're still in the middle of the pandemic. That hasn't changed, but we're hoping that since we're a little bit more experienced with it at this point all across the board, that we see less of an impact this year. We currently have 3 sections of first-year seminar being taught in Mason County Eastern and Mason County Central. So at MCE, we have 13 students in one section. At MCC, we have 26 students across 2 sections. And then at Ludington High School, since we teach that in their 3rd trimester, which doesn't start until March, those numbers are still to be determined. And that's about all I've got. But I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has, or do my best to answer them, I'll say.
Annie?
Annie.
Yes.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just wondering if you were thinking that the delivery method would still be online for us?
Well, it would really be with whatever, again, we're flexible, and whatever works best for you and your students in the community, right? I would love to, last year I was able to teach the students face-to-face for about a week and a half. And I would love to be able to teach the students face-to-face. But I also know that, every school is pretty particular about who they're allowing in and into their classrooms. So, if we could do it face-to-face, that's great. I would love to do that. We could also do it online using Zoom. Last year when we went online, there wasn't Zoom. It was just like a straight up asynchronous class. So if we went online, we could still have specific class times. So I can still get that interaction with the students. So really flexible, whatever works best for your students in the community there.
Thanks, Annie. You know, I just want to again highlight the point that you really only had about a week with our kids before everything just fell apart. And
Yeah.
so it was a pretty vulnerable population to begin with. So our numbers really reflect that challenge. And
They do.
that was a difficult time.
You know, and the students, I can speak more specifically to the Ludington section because I taught it and I worked with those students and I'm still in contact with many of them. But of the 13 who completed the course, all of them, so one of them joined the military. One of them enrolled in the automotive program at Muskegon Community College because West Shore does not have an automotive program. And then the other 11 enrolled at West Shore. And I had such a wonderful time. I got to speak with each of them individually, one-on-one, to guide them through, you know, career pursuits and talk about where they want to transfer and the best programs for them. And it was really an enjoyable process for me as the instructor. And I think that I can say the same for the instructors at MCE and MCC as well.
I would add to that, I asked our counselors, you know, how do you feel about, I know there's been a lot of concerns of those withdrawals and failures. Just, I think that's in higher education in general. Like, we don't want to see that students aren't experiencing success. So I asked the counselors if there was an option to do credit, no credit, or keep it traditional kind of as is. Like, what do you think about that? And I really like, Joan had some insights, and what she said is she likes the idea, and Joan, I'm speaking for you, so correct me if I'm inaccurate, but she likes the idea of students having the opportunity to be successful in college by getting a grade, because it shows that they can do it. And she had students who had that exact experience. So I think that it just was a powerful insight, and I wanted to share. And thank you to Joan for sharing that with me.
Anytime.
Annie. I was just wondering, when you teach your class, because you were talking, I saw that how you talked to them about checking their West Shore email and things like that. I wonder, do you highlight anything about the community schools coordinator or the CARES team out there? So if they are starting to struggle with things beyond academics, that they could reach out to the community schools coordinator?
Absolutely.
Okay. I was just
Absolutely.
It was part of the curriculum.
Yeah, part of the curriculum is really helping. And of course, you know, it was COVID really threw a wrench in it last year, because ideally we bring those students to campus and walk them into those people's offices and introduce them to those human beings fulfilling those roles. And most of us were unable to do that last year, because we typically do that in April around registration time. And by then we were all shut down. So to the best of our ability, of course, we're presenting that information digitally. It doesn't have, of course, the same impact as walking them there. But yes, I mean, part of the curriculum is really to get the students familiar and utilizing all of the supports that we have on campus. Yes.
Thank you, Annie. Any other questions for Annie before we move forward? All right. Thank you very much. Next up, Dr. Mark Kinney, Vice President of Academics and Student Services from West Shore Community College, to discuss open educational resources and provide an update to the committee. Dr. Kinney, welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I'm also going to share my screen here. I'm assuming you guys can see my slide here now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So at our last meeting back in November timeframe, there was a little bit of talk about open educational resources, or OER, and some of the work that the college is doing around that. And I think that's in connection to the conversations that are being had about whether the Promise Zone can help pay for textbooks for students. And so we wanted to show you a little bit about what we've been doing at the college to try to keep the costs as low as possible for our students in a major effort, really nationwide, and one that we've embraced is open educational resources. So first, I want to tell you what OER is. A lot of times I hear people call it online educational resources, but it's actually different than that. It's open educational resources, meaning that they are free materials or at least provided at a very, very low cost, typically below $40. And that's if students maybe want a printed version of it or something like that. OER takes all kinds of forms. It can be something that we've written internally. So one of our instructors might decide they're going to write their own textbook. And so they would have, basically from scratch, they might design their own materials. It could be something that's produced by an organization. So OpenStax is one that maybe you've heard of. They're associated with Rice University, and they've developed an entire series of open educational resource books that are basically just free to use. Or extremely low cost. And then another option is to assemble existing resources. So this can get a little bit tricky. There's a lot of legalities that need to be considered in terms of what you're allowed to freely reproduce and distribute, all kinds of different licenses that you have to take into consideration. But it is possible to go out on the internet, find materials that are allowed to be reproduced, and to assemble those into a course package for students. But OER can be used in online classes. It can be used in face-to-face classes. So I want to show you a little bit of the progression that we've had at the college using OER. You can see that 5 years ago, it was pretty much unheard of. We had 4 total classes at that point utilizing OER. As of this winter, we're up to 29 of our classes that are using open educational resources. In a full list of these, just for what it's worth, is here. You can see the number of students that are enrolled in these different sections in parentheses. So we've got a wide range of different courses that are using them at this point. And if you look at the total number of students that are being impacted by OER at this point, you can also see a huge increase, obviously, since the point when we only had 4 classes. Now we're well up over 600 in the winter, nearing 800 in the fall. Of students that are using OER. And the reason we've accomplished that, again, is by having this widespread throughout the institution. So without getting into detailed numbers here, this is just going to quickly give you a visual on which areas are really embracing OER the most. So you can see that it was actually our math department that really started that initiative at the college. And they're still one of the more prominent areas that are using OER, but our social sciences, our science, our communications areas all have really embraced the use of these. And this is from last year, but I wanted to point out that we are, right there with a lot of other community colleges, kind of near the top in terms of how much we've embraced this. And obviously our numbers have gone up significantly since this point when we only had 19. But we're definitely trying to be one of the leaders in the state in terms of using these. And so if we're not using OER, just a quick look at what our textbook costs could be. We have 159 total books that we have on our list right now at our bookstore for courses at WSCC. The average book price for those, even including the OER that are print copy, is still over $100 per book. We actually have one book that you can see that's almost $600. And anytime we come across data like that, we approach the instructors, we try to work with them to get some of those book costs down. We have other textbooks that will appear on our list that might seem extremely expensive, but we've also had subscription packages that we've started to use where for one fee of say $150 or whatever it is, you would get access to all of the books that are by that particular publisher. So we've tried to find options like that as well for our students so that they aren't paying costs like this. This is, I'm happy to say, extremely rare at this point. But the medical fields, you will notice, tend to have the most expensive books. And then just a quick look at our enrollment. That was another piece that I know we've talked a little bit about today, but overall enrollment for the fall, you can see at West Shore, we've been on, like many colleges, we've been on somewhat of a downward decline. We started to see that increase back in fall of 2019 as COVID hit, and we were trying to plan for this fall, and so much uncertainty. We actually expected about a 10% decline. That's what we had budgeted for. We were happy to see that we actually came in pretty flat compared to last year for the fall. So that was, even though we were down slightly, considering the circumstances, that was positive development for us. For this winter, we're still down some. You can see we have 1,057 students enrolled, which is about 7% down from last winter, but still above our budget of 7%, and down 5% in terms of contacts, which is actually what our budget is based off of. And then I also always think it's useful to point out some of the other demographics, just so you can see our student population and what it's made out of. We are almost a third of our student count at this point is dual enrolled high school students. And just over a quarter of the credit hours that are taken at the college are dual enrolled high school students. 2/3 of our students are female. That's been pretty consistent over the years. And over 75% of our students actually attend part-time. I think that's also important to point out, because a lot of times when we design initiatives or we're thinking about the cost or how long people are allowed to sustain benefits that we're giving them, we think of a community college education as being 2 years. That would apply to less than a quarter of our students, is 2 years. The vast majority of our students are attending part-time, have a family, or are working at the same time. And so it takes them more than that time to actually complete their degree. So I realized that was a whirlwind. I didn't want to spend too much of our meeting time, but does anybody have any questions about OER or some of the other things we have going on at the college?
So I kind of have two questions. So it looks like about 60% of your students are impacted by OER right now.
Yeah, that's probably accurate, because
Okay.
Where we've made the most gain is actually in like like I said, our math has a huge impact, but we've moved like our first English course to OER. And so pretty much every student is taking that class, right? And so that's where you get huge numbers that are being impacted by this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And out of curiosity, I know this is a little off topic, but for those dual enrolled students, who is responsible for books for those courses currently?
Annie, do you want to take that one?
The students.
Yeah. The students, I mean, it varies by high school, but for the most part, the students are responsible. Students and their families are responsible for paying for those books.
I'm wondering what you've seen in terms of enrollment changes due to the state programs like Futures for Frontliners or the upcoming Reconnect.
Yeah, so obviously we haven't seen enrollment changes for Reconnect. It's just getting started, but we're optimistic. I was sharing an article just 2 days ago with my team about how many people applied for that program. I want to say there was 19,000 people statewide that applied for that in the first 24 hours. So we're expecting to definitely see some applications coming in from that. The Futures for Frontliners, I know that we've received applications for that as well, and that the student services team has been working on processing all of those. So I can't say that we've seen, a population change as a result of it, but we're definitely going to see students as a result of those programs.
Dr. Kinney, you started this off remembering that we talked about this with the aspect of thinking about book costs for students with the promise. I'm wondering, looking at these numbers and looking at the changes that you've seen at West Shore with book costs and going to OER, is there any way to equate maybe an average per student cost that you're seeing now compared to maybe in the past that we could use to start making some judgments about textbook options for students?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much variability that it can be difficult to do that, Kathy. Obviously, if you're attending nursing or one of our medical fields, like your costs are going to be higher than someone else, right? But we are also, like I said, doing our best to get those average costs down whenever possible. So you can see that, again, right now, our average price being $100. If somebody is going to take 3 or 4 courses, you could roughly try to equate that to $400 that they're going to pay. It's not always going to work out that way. But
So
I
probably a
guess
better
that was your
question.
closest rough estimate.
Sure. Probably a better question would be, could we take the students that have been on the Promise Scholarship and get a yearly total for what that cost was for a sample set to look at for an annual cost rather than an average cost per student?
Yeah, I think that we could pull that off. I'm not going to be able to go back and see the exact books that a student has purchased, but if we see the classes that they have taken, we could, say based on current prices, this is what that, the textbooks for that course would have cost.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I did ask Cheryl Hogan and Paula Moole to be here today to kind of talk about how their program runs, how ASM Tech runs book ordering, and neither of them were able to be here. So I tentatively have them on board for May. And if that works out, maybe we can get them a little bit more information. But I think last time I had shared that the average cost for books nationally, which Cheryl Hogan had shared for me, is $414 per year, and that's 2 semesters, we're assuming. So it's a little bit of information, but yeah, drilling down would be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure I can get us some good info. I do want to give a shout out to Renee Snodgrass. She is on this call this morning, just in case we had any questions that I couldn't handle. And she's been integral in our efforts to advance OER. She's our librarian and have worked with the faculty a lot to try to promote OER and assist them as they move to that. So, thank you, Renee. If any of you have any specific questions, she would be a great resource to reach out to. And then while I had the floor, one other thing that I wanted to just mention is something new that you're probably going to hear about at the college as we enter into the fall semester is this new modality called High Flex. And basically the idea is that we're putting together some sections. We're still kind of in the experimentation phase, but we're putting together some sections of classes where students will have the option of attending face-to-face or attending remotely, perhaps even synchronously or asynchronously, basically each class period. It's going to be totally flexible. So if they wanted to come in for the first couple of weeks and get used to the class and the instructor, they could do that. And then maybe we have a foot of snow and they decide I'm not going to drive in today, they can Zoom in and attend class remotely and watch everything unfold in the classroom. Or some instructors may even give the option where they record the entire lecture and post it online and the student could watch it that night at their leisure. So we're not going to have a ton of those to start because there's a lot of technology issues that we're going to be overcoming and just getting accustomed to that as a modality. But I thought it was worth mentioning, something brand new that we're going to be trying. So keep an eye on our schedule for high flex sections, and that's what those will be.
That's really exciting. Thank you for meeting the needs of students in the pandemic and beyond. I mean, I think that that option will, cancel a lot of the need. Like, I'm not feeling well, but I could sit through a lecture, but don't want to expose people kind of issues. So that's awesome. I did have a question quick for Renee. Do students ever donate their books to the library as reference materials, or do you kind of have a section for that where students can borrow books that might be course books, at least for a couple of weeks at a time?
Yeah, we do. So we have students that will donate their books to us, and a lot of times we keep those copies. If they're currently being used, we'll add those to our textbook reserve. So the library every semester buys pretty much all of the textbooks for that semester, and then we allow students to use them in the library. But if we have another copy, I'll check that out to students for like a week, or we've had some situations where we've bought another copy of the textbook in really extenuating circumstances. So we're really lucky to have a budget for that we can purchase textbooks for students to use. But then we do also get donations from students too. Yeah.
That's great. I didn't know that you guys had a full course reserve for the offering. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because most colleges, I don't know that they do that. So that's really exciting.
It is. It's really hard now with so many fewer students, coming into the library, trying to figure out course reserves for distant students is something that librarians are looking at across the country and trying to figure out. So we don't have a good solution for that yet, but at least we know that if they can get here, we have the materials for them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinney. Thank you, Renee, for joining us. Any other questions for Mark or Renee before we move forward? All right, next up, plan of work for the committee, and we'll turn it back over to Jody.
Sorry, lost my mute button. So I just wanted to let everybody on the committee in on what's been going on in the Mason County Promise Zone. We are working on really planning ahead, narrowing our focus and making sure that everybody on the board is on board for what our future looks like and kind of where we want to go, what direction we want to take. And so in order to do some of that planning, we brought a team on from Kinney Consulting, and they're here today to kind of get us started on the conversation that we're going to share with the board later today about the landscape of student success across Mason County. So Mary Sumner and Josh Spencer are here, and they're going to chat with you and kind of get your ideas. So please feel free to unmute, share your thoughts, and know that this is a starting point. The document you're going to see in a second is really a way to get the conversation started. It was not intended to be the be all end all. And I hope that you're able to contribute as much as you feel comfortable sharing. And for that, not Renee, I'm looking at Renee right now. Mary and Josh, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I was fortunate enough to be in your last meeting back in November, just as an observer. And the work that I do with Kinney is really centered around a lot of board work, as well as other fundraising work. But when Kinney was contracted to work with the Promise Zone, it was really to help put some processes in place to clarify roles. And as the Promise Zone continues to have more resources available, really being able to put a process in place to deliberately support Mason County students as best that they could. So shortly after that meeting in November, I presented sort of a set of recommendations, one of which, as Jody mentioned, is to try to narrow the focus for where the Promise Zone authorities' attention and energies are best spent today. So not that we wouldn't revisit and look at things, but we would continue to do that, but really to put some processes in place to say, you know, this is how we can use our resources in the best way. So the Student Success Committee, of course, is a really important part of that. And we wanted to get your input as well. And we'll be doing the same exercise for those of you who are on the board later today. So you'll get another chance to provide input as well. And I do want to just let everybody know, you know, this really is a starting point. We want to be able to swiftly put a process together, but not too swiftly. We want to make sure that we've gotten all the information. So if once we're done with this discussion today, you have additional thoughts, please do share those with Jody, and she can kind of streamline those. You know, feel free to reach out to her and kind of go, oh, I was, you know, thinking about this or whatever. We know that sometimes 8 o'clock Monday morning isn't when your best thinking is done, although for some it is. I'm definitely a morning person. So I asked Josh Spencer to also join us on this meeting. Josh is our Vice President for grants and project and program development. So he works with clients a lot on just kind of organizing things to be the most successful. And so Josh also works with the Grand Rapids Promise Zone. He's the primary consultant with them as well. So he's been able to be caught up on both what you guys are doing, also what Grand Rapids is doing, and some other trends as well. So I think it'll be really helpful. So I'm going to turn it over to Josh to lead the discussion.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Just a side note, I started my career up in Scottville. I see some familiar faces here, so it's that area is still near and dear to my heart. So good to see you all this morning. So kind of to frame this conversation, you know, and some of the work I did with Grand Rapids Promise Zone and other college universities and school districts, try to kind of frame some of this college readiness discussion around buckets just to help us kind of organize our thoughts. So kind of created this overall framework to start to plug in the resources that you have within the county. I'm going to do just a really quick overview, and then we're going to dive into kind of each of these areas. And as we do that, we want to talk about kind of what is existing in these areas, a little discussion about how we think we're doing. And then if we're missing any resources that are not mapped here, we want to identify them before this is all over, realizing that we might miss something while we go through this today. If you have a, kind of lightning strikes and you say, hey, we have to add this, you can email Jody as well. But overall, and this isn't kind of my original work really, generally when you see college readiness talked about in academia, I guess mostly, it's really into three buckets. The college readiness is the services that are offered up into high school graduation. And then there's that critical transition time from the time that the student graduates from high school to the time that that student enrolls and starts attending college classes. And then college completion are the services that student receives while actually completing college. So within that, academic preparedness, do you have the knowledge base, the core competencies. Academic tenacity is more based on you have the habits and to be successful academically. Financial readiness, career exploration and readiness, and college knowledge. And that's probably, we heard a little about that today. Students, especially first year generation students, do they know even how to navigate like the college experience and all that comes along with it? In the transition, enrollment registration, FAFSA completion, which I'm sure you guys talk about quite often, kind of career planning, which, that doesn't start there. There's, as you're getting into the career exploration and readiness, you start that, but, some more intentional work around career planning, and then summer courses orientation. So what are we offering in that transition to keep the student engaged? And then as you enter college, academic performance advising, things like that. FAFSA completion continues to be a concern and a focus, I'm sure. Some first year experience, which we heard about today, which is good that you're already doing that. College pathways. So how are you simplifying the pathway through college? I know a lot of community colleges are doing more work and making more streamlined pathways through community college and ultimately transferring to a four-year institution if that's the student's desire. Emergency aid, in working with like Ferry State University, Aquinas, we realized that there's a lot of students that drop out for some fairly, small financial emergencies that they just can't cover, $300, $200 or less. So there are some programs that are out there that provide emergency aid. It looks like we've identified some. And then while you're in there, college readiness and job placement, how are you starting your career while you're still completing your college degree? So Jody, I'm going to bring you in. I know you worked, and I think you worked with some of your team too, to fill in some of these boxes and identify some of the partners. So maybe talk through, we'll start with academic preparedness. And as we do that, opening up to the group and identifying, maybe discussion of how we're doing with each of these, and then which partners might we are not identified within each of these buckets.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I actually met with, I tried to meet with all of the action teams for the College Access Network, the Mason College Access Network, to kind of identify, first, are these categories all what we want to see in Mason County? And secondly, like, who are some of the players that we need to be thinking about? And we got through the conversation about the categories. And from there, I added the players as I know them. So know that this is incomplete. But blue represents promise for the most part. Green represents the College Access Network, and yellow is all of our community, or orange is all of our community partners. So as we go through, you can see academic preparedness, the key players there, K-12 schools, Mason County District Library, and this is college readiness, so that would be kind of the K-12 pre-college population, right? Academic tenacity, K-12 schools, United Way Family Link, that's kind of building the resilience for families and students to persist through at least graduation with the goal of post-secondary education. Community foundations, youth activities, or sorry, I had a youth activities committee in a past life, but the YAC, which is the Youth Advisory Council. Financial Readiness Kickstart to Career, which just got started and is on a roll from the lower grades to the upper grades. K-12 schools, I know there are programs going on and I just don't have the full landscape there. Career Exploration and Readiness, again, K-12 schools, we're bringing in CTE, middle school, high school, advising, counseling. The Talent Pipeline Coordinator, Wendy Wells, who was just hired recently last fall at West Shore to kind of work on the Boomerang program, Pennies for Heaven. So you can see as we go down the line, like the programs are growing, and I know there are more out there. 4-H, College Knowledge, again, K-12 schools is a key player there, and then it progresses through community partners. So I just looking at this initial category, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Some of the things that I'm wondering is, one, what partners are we missing in these categories? Like, what haven't I pinned down? Two, questions. Do you have questions about these programs? Do you want to know more? And if you know of initiatives, what initiatives, maybe by an organization who might not be a partner for the Promise Zone or even the LCAN, what initiatives are out there that we're missing? And those are the same questions I'm going to have for each one of these breakdowns. But if you share, I am going to just note those on a little sticky note after the meeting. So for college readiness, does anybody see anything that should be added in academic preparedness?
So Jody, I'm not sure where it fits, but I'm wondering about some of our community partners that offer summer school opportunities or extension opportunities, like MSU Extension and the work that they do with some of their STEM programs after school, or sandcastles, some of the summer camps that are going around the area, even with the Ludington Area Center for the Arts and some of the work they do with the summer programming. And I also wonder a little bit about the preschool initiatives. I know this is for K-12, but there's been a lot of work done around getting students ready for kindergarten, and I don't know where that fits, but I'm wondering if that is something that belongs somewhere on the chart also to get students ready for kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at the landscape, it makes sense that any kind of academic preparedness is ultimately potentially post-secondary preparedness, right? So good thought there, Kathy. Thank you. I'm noting these things, and thank you, Josh.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's been a discussion with other groups I've worked with. When do we say that college readiness begins? So if you look at the Say Yes programs, I don't know if any of you look at those frameworks, you know, they go all the way to early childhood education and then their investment. You know, for this, I think we talk with Jody, made a decision to kind of start, you know, with the mapping at the high school, maybe a little in the middle school, you know, level 2, but yeah, certainly those early childhood investments, as you know, Kathy, you know, are predictors of high school and college success. So, so did I miss any? I'm sorry, Kathy, did I capture what?
I think she had also said MSU Extension.
Okay.
And then the Ludington Area Center for the Arts, so LAC. I think people will know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andrea may be able to answer this with the Kickstart to Career. I know there's also West Shore Bank does some financial literacy lessons with our students. I'm not sure if that's under the Kickstart for Career or if that's a separate program that West Shore Bank runs.
That's included in the Kickstart program. Financial literacy is a part of it. So West Shore Bank and Safe Harbor Credit Union both are our financial partners who help provide those lessons for students and their families. Although it's been limited this year because of COVID, so we're hoping next year looks a little bit better, or maybe even this spring.
Jody, how are you defining financial readiness?
Financial readiness in terms of going to college. So are there Kickstart to Career, for example, talks specifically about being college ready financially. So that's kind of how I've framed this whole conversation in terms of going to college, what's out there. And does that help?
Yeah, I just didn't know, like through Mason County Family Link, how we have different direct service dollars. Like I know like this past year, we did use some of those direct service dollars to help pay for tuition for at West Shore Community College, as well as, you know, our internet connectivity, which I know is just a grant, but where we kind of manage that. So I didn't know if that fit there or not.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
What's the, sorry, you said the connectivity grant?
Yeah, and that's through the LCAN, paying for college,
Okay.
and through United Way Family Link.
All right. Yeah, that might belong later in the continuum, but I'll stick that over here and make sure that we get that in there. Yeah, or any other additions or even discussions about how we think we're doing in these buckets?
You know, I know one of the conversations that's been brought up in the past is how do we kind of take that, maybe that financial readiness piece and work with our businesses, because we know that a lot of the businesses across the county have tuition reimbursement for their employees and potentially their employees' dependents. So how do we kind of connect that to this landscape of financial readiness? So that maybe adding that, Josh, would be, I would consider adding that. We don't have a really concrete plan, but I think along those same lines, you know, when we get to the next section is how do we tap into businesses who are employing families to get more information about FAFSA completion out there.
So you're saying a lot of businesses have that, or are you talking about school district employees specifically?
No, I'm talking about the businesses in the community. We do have several who offer some form of tuition reimbursement for their employees and potentially for employees' dependents.
Good.
Okay.
Well, maybe let's move on, but if we have a discussion later and you think of something, we'll move back up and add a resource. But going into college transition, Jody, take it away.
Yeah, so you can really see this is the section where our high school counselors are really, really working hard for us, and a lot of their energy is spent in that last year, but even before that, preparing students for the enrollment process, for making a college choice. So enrollment registration, dual enrollment covered in K-12 schools, Monica just asked. And yes, that was kind of my consideration, is that dual enrollment would be covered, but we can be more explicit about that for sure. I'm noting that down. So enrollment registration, high school, college advising counseling sessions, Mason Can college Q&A sessions. So that isn't just West Shore, that's across the state. We had those virtually this year. West Shore has an info session, and so does the Promise Zone for using the Promise and for enrolling in West Shore. And Annie's been such a great partner in making those happen. And Annie's a great resource as the West Shore Director of Enrollment. Annie Jacobson is really a key player in connecting students. And I know that she goes through all of our list of potential Promise scholars and tries to do as much outreach as possible in that enrollment registration process. But are there any players that you think that we're missing in that part of the landscape that I haven't accounted for? Okay, if you think of one, just let me know. Then next in that college transition to from high school to college, Fafsa scholarship, high school college advising counseling sessions, Promise info sessions. Again, those have all been virtual. Last year, I got into a couple of classes before COVID shut us down, but hoping that virtual only won't be our pattern, that we'll be able to get in contact with more seniors directly in the future. Community Foundation scholarships and Kickstart to Career, again, a player there in that FAFSA scholarship assistance. West Shore's Financial Aid Office and their foundation offer great scholarships. Other resources for scholarships, I didn't put businesses there either, so that might be just a double note. Career planning, West Shore Talent Pipeline Coordinator, newly hired, so that's a growing program. CTE, of course, is a huge player in career planning. Michigan Works, Pennies for Heaven Foundation videos, and this is really the time between or at the tail end of the senior year to the beginning of freshman year, like where are students getting the information to make their decisions about where they want to go or what they want to pursue in that short time frame. And then finally, summer courses and orientations, Promise online or in-person orientation. That's, sorry, just for the Promise Zone. West Community College has the info sessions again, and Annie and I have been in talks about maybe developing an orientation for West Shore that's in person for Promise scholars. And that's not in stone or anything, it's just in talks. And West Shore's, traditionally, West Shore's orientation has been offered online to all students. Okay, some text. So Kathy asked, does ASM Tech still do a summer orientation? And Annie, do you know about that?
Yes,
Okay.
they do. Paula brings the students to campus the week before classes start for two of the three groups of students who are in ASM Tech, the third years, fourth years, and fifth years.
And I guess we know that CTE also does bring students, but that wouldn't be in the summer. Wendy asked for college readiness, what about Michigan Works? I have them in career planning. Wendy, do you know what they do for college readiness? Other than career planning? Go ahead.
This is Lynn. I know like Michigan Works, they may be, the other part where they maybe would be up above, because they do provide like for certain programs at West Shore or certain college, like they will reimburse for tuition and pay for mileage and things like that. So I'm not sure like where that fits in, but I just thought of that. It might more be applicable to the first. I'm not really sure.
Okay, so that's a program. It sounds like I need to investigate a little bit more and talk to Shelley or Mary about what they specifically do in that area. So I will ask. And this
because there's different programs that they will reimburse for.
Okay.
And pay like mileage and back and to go back and forth and things like that. So
other thoughts? Thank you. All right.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Even that's a perfect example of there might be programs out there that we don't have all of the information we need to know where it goes on this space, but that's something that in between now and the next discussion we have, we can certainly dig into and make sure. So don't be afraid to shout something out or put it in the chat, even if you don't have all of the detail on it, because we will definitely dive into it.
Michigan Works is striving to do more with approved apprenticeship programs. Thanks, Dale, for mentioning that. And that's kind of new and exciting. And the LCAN is signed on to supporting any work that Michigan Works is doing with apprenticeships. But I am excited to see kind of where that goes, because for those of you who may not know much about apprenticeships, and I think a lot of you do, it's not a clear pathway to how to connect one when students have, are in the situation where they want to choose a career that might require an apprenticeship. It's not always obvious. So it's great that Michigan Works is on board to help make that process more obvious. Where there's 4-H, you can add Girl and Boy Scouts. And that has just mentioned. So I'm going to just put that down. And of course, if you think of something after we've talked about it, just email it to me, college transition, college readiness, or college completion, doesn't matter. I will get it on this working board.
Good. Should we move to completion?
I think so.
All right.
So here you can see that West Shore is a really key player in the community, but we also know, just based on Annie's FYS information, first year seminar information, that not all students choose West Shore. And so, it's something to keep in mind, is like, how are we supporting students who may not take that local pathway and may go somewhere else? So in this area, academic performance, West Shore faculty advisors, tutoring and writing, success coaching is through the Promise Zone and through West Shore. They are working on that. And that added somewhere you can add Optimist Oscar. I'm noting that down this reading program. And I think there might be Rotary Strive, if I think I got that in there, but just in case, that's a mentoring program.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
Okay, good. And I don't know if that's the right place for it, but I'll think on that. So academic performance in college, if you can think of any other resources that might kind of contribute to that in Mason County, please let me know. Okay, FAFSA scholarship assistance. And again, this is when students are in school, not so much in that transition. Thanks, Annette. Oscar is in 3rd grade, so that would go in the college readiness. FAFSA Scholarship Assistance Financial Aid Office is kind of the key player there. LCAN does do paying for college sessions, which students who are thinking about where they might go after they obtain their degree from West Shore or complete their certificate, that would be a resource for them. Emergency Aid 211 Lake Shore Food Club and other food pantries, True North Community Service. I'm going to have that chat later too, Josh, so I can always put those up there.
Yeah.
Promise Scholarship obviously continues through the college career as long as it's in the first 4 years. Community Foundation Scholarships and Kickstart to Career, those monies would theoretically be available to students. Foundation scholarships, employer benefits. So this was the first place I noted that as a possibility. And Rotary Strive. And I don't know if that's just Rotary scholarships because I think Strive is a mentoring program. So
I can speak to that if you want to.
Please, Dale, I would love that.
Oh, yeah, Strive does have scholarship money to it, especially tied to West Shore. So it is a mentorship, but there's also scholarship incentives for the top students. And then Rotary also does sponsor some West Shore scholarships outside of Strive.
Okay. So if we put the /scholarships, do you think that kind of nails it?
Sure.
Okay.
But it also should go on academic performance for the mentoring aspect.
Yes.
Did you say? Yeah.
And Dale, that starts before college, right?
Correct.
At least the mentoring piece of it.
Yeah, it's designed to support students in their senior year, going in all throughout their senior year of high school.
It could be in college readiness and in the transition. Scholarship assistance, Ludington, Scottville Area Chamber of Commerce. That was from Lynn. Okay, noting those. College Knowledge first year, or I think we got through all of those. College Knowledge first year experience, the West Shore curriculum, first year seminar funded by the Promise. And of course, that's kind of a pre-college, but we know that saves, or that gets students ready and it potentially saves them time once they're in college. College pathways, West Shore's curriculum, faculty and advisor. We don't really have any influence over college pathways here in the county that I can think of apart from West Shore. Emergency aid, that's where a lot of our community partners come in. So United Way Family Link, I think that's where we would add 211 onto that same one.
There.
Or Lakeshore Food Pantry. Yeah, I mean, just that's perfect. The Family Link is at the college, but then United Way has access on Tinkham and Ludington. So those are kind of two different entities. West Shore Director of Student Access and Support, Department of Health and Human Services, 5CAP. Any other resources and emergency aid? I think True North was added. Help,
Yes.
Salvation Army.
So these are 3 different organizations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under College Knowledge, should dual enrollment be and CTE articulation be added? That might even be.
Yeah, I put dual enrollment up there.
I kind of just did a blanket with CTE in a couple of places.
Yeah, it should be. I can put it. Yeah, there's a lot of programs that bridge these. So we got another comment here.
Yeah, Lynn had just said Mason County Family Link is a program within United Way and West Shore. So some of these are doubling up a little bit, but just trying to be intentional about they are a specific service.
All right. The last one.
Career
college.
readiness and job placement. So we have Michigan Works, the talent pipeline coordinator, who's new. So I just put that there because I know Wendy's doing some great work that is definitely designed to help students there. Pennies for Heaven has some locally created videos, and employer services and resources would be another option. Anything else in career readiness in the college completion world that I'm missing? Maybe West Shore faculty.
So there's a pretty strong drive for entrepreneurship in Mason County as well. Am I remembering that correctly? Does that belong? And what are some of those? I think there's Pennies from Heaven.
The videos.
Well, there's more than videos, right? There's a business plan competition and.
Oh, that's through the chamber.
The chamber.
Yeah, and I don't know how tied in that is to college completion, but Momentum Business Competition, Monica just said, in 5x5 at Epworth.
Oh, you're doing 5x5, good.
Thanks, Monica. So anything else in any of the sections? Okay.
All right.
Jody, what's it called through the chamber where they assist businesses and new businesses and startup? I'm drawing a blank on what it's called.
We got SCORE. Is that?
SCORE.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fits in there.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Lynn.
Nice. All right. So taking a look at these, I don't know how much time you allocated for this. Are we out of time, Jody, or that we're going to continue this discussion and others, but I think since we probably do have limited time, if we do, I think the one question I'd like to just discuss is, as we're moving, the board's going to review this later, start to think about what areas the Promise Zone specifically would focus on. And as we dive deeper into how you might focus that work, who else needs to be at the table in those discussions?
Well, Josh, I would just input as far as who else should be at the table. We've been at this for 3 years, and the LCAN previous to that, I've never had any recollection of being in a meeting discussing any of this with any of the professors from West Shore Community College. It just seems like we don't hear from any of the staff, teaching staff there. And I'm just wondering if, I realize we have administrators from West Shore, but, and some of them do classroom work, but I just wonder if that's a consideration.
Absolutely, thank you.
Great, yep.
Who else?
Sounds good to me.
Josh and Jody, I also wonder if it makes some sense. I mean, you know, taking a look at this in the 15 minutes, half hour that we've looked at it, I question whether or not, you know, we have a ton of great partners in this meeting. Joan, Laura, school districts, the college. I wonder if we need to take a step where we share this document with those individuals, provide them some time to think about many of the resources that are already available. Because I know the way that I operate, putting me on the spot sometimes takes me a minute to try to think of all of the things that can fill each of these buckets. But if we were to provide this and allow some amount of time for each of the schools, the Career Tech Center, the community college, to provide some feedback, I'm certain we'll end up filling these buckets with more information.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad you mentioned that, Jason. And one of the considerations was that I am intending to reach out to partners to get more information on your programs, because I put that K-12 kind of blanket in there and West Shore kind of as a blanket too. But my hope is that over the next month, I can connect with with your teams and get more impact. But I think sharing this out too, I mean, I would love if you shared it out and got more feedback just within your institution.
Yep, and we've built in time to do that kind of work, so certainly we need to do that.
Great.
Okay.
So one quick thought on the sticky notes. I love the framework, by the way, and I appreciate having those buckets already to look at. I think that's really wonderful for our thinking. I also wonder if we could look at the sticky notes from a different angle. Right now, the colors are based on who's providing the service. And I'm wondering if we could look at them instead from the angle of who's receiving the service. So maybe we change colors of sticky notes to maybe grade levels, or if there's a geographic or demographic angle we could look at them from, to just think more about who are we servicing versus who's providing the service.
That's great. Yeah, and we may end up needing to kind of break these into different pages to be able to do that. But I love that what you're saying, you know, not only who's impacted, but some of those specific programs and opportunities there. So I think that's great. Yeah, that would be good to do.
Well, like I said, we will be revisiting. So this won't be the first or last time that you see this. I think we need to do some of this other work, complete this out, take a look at it again at the next meeting. I believe we have some time slotted to do that. We do want to make sure this is complete, and this should always probably be evolving. I'm sure there would be just things that we identify that maybe we all weren't aware of, or that we just didn't think to add. So never thinking this is a complete framework, but we're always adding and changing, especially as new services and programs are added. So some of your board members, you'll get this again later, but I want to thank you for your time today and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Josh and Mary.
Thank you very much. So before we adjourn, I just want to make one comment, in that the work that's being done here on behalf of the board and the Promise Zone, when you think about where our Promise Zone authority is at and the resources that will be available to us as we move further and further into maturing our Promise Zone, it's really important that we have this framework established so that we can begin to prioritize resources to support student success. The Promise Zone has captured its first capture of state education tax dollars, and it's a significant amount of money. We're talking nearly $750,000 in that first capture, and Treasury continues to share estimates with us that have next year's capture being well over $1 million, and that number continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow based upon investments that are being made in the community. And so when you start to think about the magnitude of the resources that will be available to support student success, it's really important for us to have an understanding of the supports that are in place and how we can use those resources to leverage student success as best as possible. So a special thanks to Kinney for their work on behalf of the committee. And I know, while I don't want to speak for all of the board, I'm confident in saying that this work will help us move forward and be able to identify those strategies that can help students be successful. So any other comments before we discuss next meeting and adjourn for today?
Just one, Jason. Was I out of the picture when we did 5B4 agenda item?
Which one is it? 5?
The success coaching update?
Oh, sorry, we did. Yes, missed that. So I'm going to go back and turn that over to Jody. I don't know if we want to provide an update or if you have something on that, Jody. My apologies.
Yeah, so I did want to update you. Thank you. West Shore has hired a completion coach, and she's here with us today. And I know she was briefly introduced, but Callie Oer is, she's familiar with the with the Mason County area because she's worked here. She attended school and graduated from West Shore, and she's our success coach for the Promise. The Promise Zone is right now, our success coaching program is serving all of our Promise scholars, but Callie is specifically serving Promise scholars who are low income, first generation, and students of color. And then Annie has agreed to kind of help with any other student who's interested in West Shore, in connecting them to resources. And that's really what a success coach does, is they're there to just kind of be the first line of, hey, you need to talk about something and I'm here to hear you out, and to connect you to other professionals on campus who can help you sort things out once we've identified maybe your issues or your goals or really what you need to do in order to be successful. But for a lot of students, it's an unfamiliar territory to enter into success coaching. And so this fall, we piloted it. I think we had 6 students sign up. Right now, we have 5. I didn't look today since the weekend, but so it's a really, really small pilot. It's intended to be for anybody who's interested, and students can opt in. And right now in the pandemic, getting students to opt in is an adventure. And so I'm hoping to see this program grow. And West Shore has really kind of taken success coaching under their wing. They wrote a grant so that they could get Callie on campus through Michigan College Access Network's College Completion Corps program. And so Callie's going to be at West Shore for 2 years serving in this role and really helping us to establish a really strong process. And Chad and Avinet and Tammy Wolverton and Annie Jacobson have all been key players in helping us to make the program stronger so that when we get into next fall, we can build it into orienting our Promise scholars into success coaching, really honing in on the values and the purpose of success coaching and making sure that they have all the information they need up front to sign on for that tool. And the board has generously offered money to help support this initiative through incentivizing participation. And we know from presentations across the state and the country that incentives help students to complete success coaching goals because it's really outside of their class requirements. And so that's what's happening at West Shore. I don't know, Callie, if you want to add anything about how things are going in the pandemic, because I know it's been an adventure for you.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I think students aren't wanting to reach out as much just because they're at home working on their computers and they don't have to come to campus to see me. But I'm working on reaching out to them and going to start calling them this week so I can start setting up meetings with students.
So she's really a great resource for calling, texting. Students have been responding to that and emailing too, but we know students are kind of asleep at the wheel when it comes to email. They're not so interested in even opening. Once they see the title, they're like, okay, next. So again, it's a process in the pandemic to learn, but that puts us, I think it'll set us up even stronger when we're all face to face, because right now West Shore is kind of doing a blended thing as all colleges are. So thank you, Callie, for your work on that, and Annie for your work on that as well. That's my update.
Kelly, welcome as well, and thanks for the work that you're doing. And my apologies for skipping over that agenda item.
That's all right.
So the next meeting is May 10th, scheduled from 8 to 9:30 a.m. And if there are no other items of business from the committee meeting, we'll open up the floor to public comments.
I think one thing that I had heard a board member bring up, and I wondered, is May still, is this time frame still okay? This May or this Monday at 8 a.m. Okay, hearing no objections there. And something to put on your radar is that some of the work that Kinney is doing to help support the board is to really take a look at our committees, how our committees are organized, who our experts are, and connecting them, connecting the committees and the board's more strategic work. And so what they're hoping is to set up a June meeting in order to do some of the committee charter work and to really strategize about, with the board, strategize about what the Student Success Committee is purposed to do. And so I just want to put that out there that I am going to be requesting a June meeting, and I'm hoping that you will respond to the poll that I send out.
Great. Any other business or public comments? Final call public comments. Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:24. Thank you everyone for being here this morning. Appreciate all the help.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.